Hi, welcome to this edition of Stress Reduction TV. And I am so excited today to have my special guest, Michele Granberg, the host of Positive Energy TV and mindset coach, laughter therapy coach, many other skills she has. Welcome, Michele. Thank you so much for joining me today.
Hi, Stephanie. Thanks for having me.
I'm super excited to talk to you because you know I'm working on this project, Self-Compassion for the Job Seeker in a pandemic situation, global pandemic. And I was really wondering if you could tell us a little bit about mindset coaching and how important do you think mindset is to this endeavor of trying to find a job, especially when it doesn't seem like there's a lot of jobs out there. So maybe you could tell us a little bit about what you do and how you think it could help.
I think it's such an important and timely topic that sort of is a snapshot of exactly where the majority of people are in their journey at the moment and the challenges that they're meeting up with in terms of becoming employed. And so, I am a, growth mindset coach, and that's sort of the hub of everything that I do. And that really speaks to the fact that your most important asset is your mindset. Very often where people keep hitting walls is because they sabotage themselves without realizing it because their mindset is kind of fixed. So when it comes to, searching for jobs, very often the thing behind the thing that people aren't really considering, they're just looking at their resume and they're just looking at their skill set and all of the measurable outside in aspects of who they are without looking from the inside out. And it's everything. It informs absolutely everything. It's the lens through which we see the world and the world is reflected back to us. It's the filter through which we form our self-concept and our self-image. And of course, that affects everything we do or even attempt to do in life.
So Michele, how much do you think, or this is based on the work of Carol Dweck, right? Growth mindset?
Yes.
So how much does how you're willing to kind of put yourself out there have to do with the mindset that you have?
Yeah, absolutely. I think it's a fundamental piece of your motivation. It's either what gives you fuel to take action or depletes you, right? So, of course it goes hand in hand with, what I tripped over in terms of learned optimism and cognitive behavioral therapy. There's so much overlap, and just, the work of Norman Vincent Peale with Power of Positive Thinking, but it's so much more than that. It's really taking a look at the continuum on which we operate in terms of a negative fixed mindset versus a growth mindset being a mindset that grows, our mindset that evolves, instead of believing and assuming that we get to a certain age and we're always going to think the way we think and we're always going to feel the way we feel and we're always going to act and behave because I'm of a certain age now. There's nothing I can do about it. And that in itself is a belief and a mindset, and it's absolutely untrue. Our mindset, just like everything else, is changeable and flexible and moldable, and that we can use tools and strategies to deliberately take our mindset and say, does it serve me? In what ways does or doesn't it serve me? And all of that energizes and informs us in a way that leads to success.
So just to clarify, if I think that I'm too old to switch careers, or in the past I sent out 100 resumes and I didn't hear anything and that Apple-Track system is out to get me, if I'm thinking that way, is that what you're describing as a fixed mindset, which kind of leads me to like a dead-end wall? I just think that's where it is and I'm believing. So does growth mindset offer like this idea to kind of challenge our beliefs?
Yeah, absolutely. It says that those kinds of thoughts are a loop, are just sort of this circle. Those thoughts lead to more of the same thoughts, And those same thoughts lead to the same feelings, and those feelings lead to the same action. So it becomes this self-fulfilling prophecy that puts a ceiling on our potential. So literally, it's our self-talk that we, again, sort of habitual self-talk. If we're saying to ourselves, I can't, or failure is imminent, or I never succeeded before, or my potential is predetermined, or I don't have enough experience, right? And so it's all of that dialogue that on a literal level, creates our confidence and creates our reality, but it also, again, doesn't fuel us in service in any way. So yes, it's about deliberately working with that mindset and deconstructing it and then reconstructing it.
And you bring up a really good point about all the self-talk and how it feeds that kind of hamster wheel of like, this isn't going to work, this isn't going anywhere. And in self-compassion, we talk a lot about the inner voice and the inner critic. How can we take that, just what you said, like, I'm too old, it's not going to work, I don't have enough experience. Do you have any practical advice for us? Aside from mindset coaching, which would be really good, in terms of like, it would be a really self-compassionate thing to shift into that growth mindset. Do you have anything practical that job seekers could use to kind of shift that and get out of that negative loop thinking?
Well, I mean, yes, there's lots of wonderful tools, and certainly you could see a mindset coach like myself, but the key piece is self-compassion and non-judgment is key, because otherwise you won't even think you're worthy enough or love yourself enough to even bother working on it. So that is first, not to take the self-criticism and the self-judgment out of it. And then the tools are all sort of these tools that work with the subconscious and shifting our state and shifting our awareness. So one tool would be perhaps some journaling. So simply using the regularity of writing things down, and there's something quite magical, believe it or not, to that. Just the act of writing something down shifts your relationship to what it is that you're writing down as just a thought that goes around and around to something that I can now detach and observe. So maybe journaling some of the core beliefs or the normally subconscious beliefs. In other words, pick a topic like my job search and brainstorm all the self-talk, quote yourself, every limiting sort of belief that you can kind of list. And again, that will begin to help you detach, and then you can maybe begin to reframe. But also mindfulness as a way of being, and mindfulness meditation as well, because that once again shifts us into a position of the observer. And when we observe, we naturally tap into our highest potential, right? And so we're going to be much kinder to ourselves, much more compassionate, right? Because we're observing the workings of our own mind, and we pretend to say,
And it's a lot easier when we're looking at, like, when I'm looking at my friend doing that, I'm going, it's so much easier, that third party kind of looking in. And when we practice mindfulness, we kind of step back and we observe like a third party.
Like we're our own friend, like a third party, more detached and more neutral. And then when we use tools like self-statements and setting intentions and affirmations and visualization and mantras, whatever it is that we practice regularly and consistently, that's the important piece. To do it regularly, consistently, and proactively in the moment to catch it, but also when you're just sitting quietly, if you can sit quietly 5 minutes a day, and once you start to calm down and clear your mind a little bit, then plunk in programming what you want to program, what you want to cultivate by talking to yourself. There's many ways to do that. You can look in the mirror and do it, right? You can write it down. You can meditate on it. You can self-reflect. But again, it's getting into a relationship with yourself such that you don't judge yourself, but you say, if I could do better, what would that sound like? What would that look like? What would that feel like if I could do better and approach it with compassion?
Yeah, I love that you offer so many different tools in terms of like the journaling, like there's some bilateral integration there. It's like, I get a little anxious about writing, but I'll tell you when I do the journaling and I'm actually writing it out, I'm like, oh, I did not even realize that was a limiting belief that I had. Because when you say limiting beliefs, people don't know they have limiting beliefs. That's the irony of limiting beliefs. We just
That
have
is the
what
irony.
we call beliefs, right? And then we find out like, oh
Right.
wow, that's really,
They're operating us, but they're so intrinsic to who we are that we don't recognize them. They're just like
I
close.
love that you talk about deconstructing and kind of disentangling those beliefs, because once they really have less of a grip on you once you start to deconstruct what these things are and how they make you feel. So I love that you offer so many different tools for so many different learning styles as well, because maybe it's imagery and it's the mantra and all these different things contribute to our well-being. How do you think growth mindset contributes to everyone's well-being, not just
Well,
job seekers?
not just job seekers. It's universal in terms of anybody who wants to keep taking steps. And intrinsically, we are born to seek our highest potential. We're always moving in that direction. It's just how quick we move in that direction and how much we hold ourselves back, in that way. But it definitely growth mindset can help with us emotionally, mentally, and even physically, because there's all the science that backs the brain science and all of the science that backs that the mind and the body are absolutely connected. So it's literally like our body's listening in some ways, like our cells, our atoms are literally listening to the things we're thinking inside in our silent words, as well as our verbalization, all the time, and responding accordingly. And they're really showing that there is science behind that literally what we say about our health, about our well-being, and who we are as a person, manifests itself and sort of shows up after a while. By the time it shows up in our physical health, it's probably been going on for a while. And so I think it's the mechanics behind there being no coincidences in terms of our well-being.
And how really positive people end up like doing really well, feeling really good. I love how you point out that we're going to put something in. We're going to take, because there's been a little controversy over positive affirmations and positive psychology, but we're taking, reducing stress by doing this and doing that. But what are we putting in? We're getting rid of, we're accepting the negative thoughts. And when we're practicing mindfulness, we're practicing this meta awareness of everything's included in everything. But what do we want to cultivate, right? We want to cultivate that growth mindset, and we want to have those secret, silent, whatever you were saying there, the silent thoughts, to be more positive, more cognitively flexible. And there's something to believing that things can be okay and that they can turn out okay. Yeah.
Yes, there's everything to that. There's everything to that. And even in terms of resiliency and just being hopeful, if we're trapped in a mind that keeps convincing us that it's all going to turn out bad, and that, so then that's going to completely zap our energy as well.
Yeah, and you're our positive energy woman. So how do you keep cultivating hope when it might seem like there is no hope? So what do you do? Because you are always, always in the positive energy mode. I've never seen you when you weren't. So I'm sure there are times that you have to bolster yourself with hope and resiliency. And what do you do?
Yeah, I mean, I'm human, of course, just like everyone else, which is why we teach what we need to learn very often. And in order to keep myself hopeful, I have to catch myself when I get into those negative, that negative frame of mind, and use my own tools. And before I get too far down that road. And so, just like you said, I'm trying to always be in that detached position of the observer, and notice, often it'll just kind of show up in, feeling in the pit of my stomach, and a little bit of anxiety that comes creeping around. And then I try to retrace my thoughts and really say, okay, so what's been the story that I've been telling myself all this time? And that often will snap me out of it, and snap me back. And so I think it comes down to all of us taking responsibility for ourselves, because it would be easy to believe, another belief would be that we're victims, right? And that we're, why bother? Because the world is such a terrible, awful place. But if we say, others just like me are creating their reality with their mindset, they just all happen to be on the same page in some ways, but it doesn't have to affect my personal experience if I take responsibility for myself first and foremost, and only myself, and also do no harm, right? That's the motto, like take self-responsibility, and with that, do no harm. And so again, it all kind of boils right back down to the paradigm going on in here, right? The our primary perspective on the world out there, and knowing that it starts here and that it's projected to what's going on out there, and that the outer is a reflection of the inner. We could say a mirror. Yes.
Yeah, and I really appreciate you sharing the times when you were being human, because common humanity shows us that we all suffer. Everyone suffers. Even your best teachers suffer. And I showed up kind of a little disheveled once for an appointment. I was going to teach a class, and the woman said specifically, like, I can't believe you're like stressed out. Aren't you the stress teacher? And I was like, well, I am, but I am human too. So thank you, Michele, because when we share our own struggles, we really get to let our people, our fellow human beings know that everyone goes through this.
Yeah,
everyone goes through stress.
That's what compassion and empathy, which is the sort of the Buddhist tradition or the mindfulness tradition teaches us, that meditation, that like, just like me, this person is struggling. Just like me, this person is having a bad day, right? Just like me, this person is trying their best to do better. And that's just another good sort of meditation and mantra to repeat, to remind us that we're more alike than we are dissimilar. So
that's one of my favorites. I love that. It's so also mindfulness being like the other major component of self-compassion and self-kindness. So within your coaching, and you're also a mindfulness coach as well, bringing all those three components of self-compassion. And I would really suggest, if you do any mindset coaching, you make sure that you work with self-compassion, because it can be, to really recognize and notice, oh, I've always believed this. I believe this with all my heart, and then to maybe find out that we're creating a story in our mind, and we don't have to suffer as much. So I just really love, I think mindset.
You want to celebrate and congratulate yourself when you come to those mini and major realizations, not chastise yourself for how long it took,
right?
Or as if I shouldn't have, but I mean, right? It's all part of the process.
Oh, we hear this all the time, like, I should not be in this position that I'm in right now. And the thing is if you are there, you're in good company, because a lot of people are looking for jobs right now. I know you're not looking for a job, Michele, but for the people that are, we are all in this unusual, unprecedented situation, and we can just work with our thinking, our self-kindness, our judgment. Now's the time more than ever that judgment comes up. When you're looking for a job, judgment comes up a lot, because there's a lot of social comparison going on. And with growth mindset, it's like, I can learn from every opportunity. And that, you can't lose with that. That means every single, and there's this idea, what is it? Steve Jobs, did he say that every failure was one more step towards my success? That is definitely growth mindset.
He had growth mindset.
Yeah.
That's such a great example.
Yeah.
Right? Totally reframing failure.
Mm-hmm.
Failure is a good thing, if you can. again, turn it around. Take a thought. I mean, that's the challenge we can offer to people, but make it an adventure, to take a thought, to encapsulate that thought in a negative thought, and see if you can turn it around, right? And employers they're often trained to pick up on these subtle levels of confidence and positivity.
Yeah.
And those are strengths that they're looking for if you want to get the job and be marketable and have an edge. You want to give off a vibe. Often it's nonverbal as well as verbal, but I think that interviewers can often pick up on that. And also your neighbors pick up on it and your loved ones pick up on it, right? We pick up on that sort of vibe. And that's where it's saying there's something even more tangible energetically about our mindset and the things that we say, where we gravitate towards certain people. We're like, let me rub that off on me, some of that.
Let me network with Michele.
Awesome
She got it going on.
But there's a lot to hanging out, right? That they say that the 20 people you hang out with the most or something like that winds up being very often, how you identify yourself and how you limit or don't limit yourself. So hang out with people who are also on this path of growth and success.
I love that. I'm sure, why don't you tell us how people can find you, because you are definitely a good person to hang around with. And I know you have lots of practical ideas. You had me thinking also, like those questions that they asked you, name a bad situation that you had at work. Like if you give a growth mindset, like if you genuinely start to cultivate a growth mindset, that's going to come across in any of those questions. You're not going to have to practice what you have to say for those questions. It's just going to come out naturally and authentically. And that's what a really good idea you just gave me. So thank you so much. But Michele, where can we find you?
Well, my website's michelegranberg.com, and all the information about what I do is there on the website. My physical location is Princeton, New Jersey.
And Positive Energy TV on
Positive Energy TV. I hope people will watch. It airs on Princeton Community Television, but it's archived on both YouTube and Vimeo, so you can just search for Michele Granberg on either of those places as well.
And it's a wonderful show. She has lots of really interesting guests. So thank you so much, Michele, for coming today and in our virtual interview.
Our virtual coming together.
Our virtual coming together. I really appreciate you taking the time. Thank you so much.
Thanks for having me.
Okay. All right now. Thank you so much for joining us. And until next time, be well.